Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm going to be doing my weekly wrap up. It's the second week for April. I'm going to go over all the books that I read from April 7th through the 13th. Had a pretty decent week. I read 8 books. So let's go ahead and dive into those now. Okay, so the first book that I read was actually a novella. I am continuing my Ice Planet Barbarians, and the next one I actually had to read was, I think, 15.5 in Ice Planet Barbarians. This was The Barbarian Before Christmas. So this is just a quick novella that kind of goes, kind of revisits some of our favorite couples. But I gotta tell you, reading this novella, I realized that I wasn't reading in like Ruby Dixon's order and that she has other series connected to the Ice Planet Barbarians. So when we pick up this novella, like there's this dragon guy that I never read that series. I didn't read this other series. So it got me in a wormhole because I technically could read it because it was about our characters. But then I started like wondering where the heck are these people coming from? So I went online and looked up her reading order. So I'm gonna probably pause after the next Ice Planet Barbarians that I read and go to those other series so I can kind of get the whole picture of all these characters. Anyways, that's just a side thing. It drove me nuts. I was like, who the heck is this person? Veronica, and there's a book called Veronica's Dragon, I guess. I don't know. I had never read them. I was just reading the Ice Planet Barbarians series. So didn't know that they were all interconnected. So I'm definitely going to be diving into those probably next month. I'm probably going to start reading those. Anyways, this novella was really cute. It's another, Christmas Ice Planet Barbarians novella. As always, they're just feel good. I love reading Ice Planet Barbarians. So this one, you get to revisit Beck and Elle, and I really loved that. Like, they were super sweet in this, and Elle was, like, missing her man. We have Ahako and Kira, Rokan and Lila, Liz. It was crazy because we got to even get Liz and Rahash, so that's, like, way back, I think, the second book, so it was great revisiting them. Harlow and Rook. And then also Vectel and Georgie, taking it back to the original couple. So I had a great time with this, just was confused on who this dragon guy was, and I wanted to read his book. So I ended up giving this novella 4 stars. It was 3 chilies. It was a good, sweet little fun time. Okay, so then I actually went into the next book in that series, which is Barbarians Beloved. And this is Ice Planet Barbarians number 16. This is between Zolaya, I think it's Zolaya, if I'm saying his name right. Sorry, it's been a bit. And Ariana. And what's cool about this is this was one of the couples way back in the original Ice Planet Barbarians that kind of like was immediately mated. They immediately resonated to each other. We just kind of heard about them. But we never really got their romance, which I thought was kind of weird, you know? So this is actually going back, like it's seeing them now where she's pregnant. I think she's about to have like their second baby. And, she's missing him because he's off in like the beach area helping the newcomers. And she's just really missing him. And then we gotta go back to see how they originally resonated. And you may remember her if you read the first Ice Planet Barbarians. She was or the first few. She was like the girl that was always crying. So we kind of get to see why she was like that. She suffers from severe anxiety. So obviously she had been on like, anti-anxiety medication. Now you don't have anything like that. And you're thrown on this ice planet with blue aliens and, you're, the Kui is like put in you and all that kind of stuff. So, or the Cootie as they call it. So she had major anxiety, but she resonates to Zolaya. I'm probably saying the name wrong, you guys. I'm sorry. But they resonate pretty quickly, but he is like so patient with her. They like really go off on their own. They kind of get to know each other. She doesn't want everybody to see her have like panic attacks. And he kind of gets her like a soothing tea and like talks her through her panic attacks. So like in the current time when he's away, her anxiety is like a all-time high and she really wants her mate. But it was just really sweet. It was cool to see them and their romance. It does have that representation for anxiety in there, and I thought it was well done. So I enjoyed this one. It didn't blow me away or anything, but as always, like if it doesn't blow me away, it's usually pretty decent, like 4-star for me. So I did give this one 4 stars and 3 chilies. And then now I got to go read those other books that are connected to this series. Okay, so I have not read Melanie Harlow. I know, it's crazy. She's big. She's everywhere. I see her books talked about all the time, but I've just never picked it up, any of her books. So I actually asked Jen from the Book Refuge, because I always see her post about Melanie Harlow, like, where's a good place to start? And she told me to start with Coverley Farms. So did I listen to this? No, I read this. Sorry. I read this physically. I picked up Irresistible and this is the first book in the Coverley Farms series. And this is between Mac and Franny. This is like an age gap, nanny, single dad romance. And I enjoyed it. It didn't blow me away. I think there were some missing kind of pieces that kind of fell for me, but I still enjoyed it. It was kind of not even that long of a book, but it was kind of slow going for me. I think I just had trouble getting into it because I actually did enjoy the couple and the romance and everything. So what this is Mac actually works for Franny's father, for her parents, and she had like a bad heart condition when she was younger, so she had multiple surgeries, and her parents are like really overprotective. So she's like the youngest sister, and she kind of isn't really fully have a great relationship with her sisters because her parents were so over the top with her and sheltering her that, you know, it kind of built this gap between her and her sisters. And it was cool to see her try to bridge that gap in this and get to know her sisters and kind of open up to them and have them have a better relationship. So I did love the sisters aspect in this, and I think each book follows a sister, so I'll be interested to continue the series. But she has basically had a crush on Mac forever. He's a single dad of 3 daughters, and let me tell you, it's really hard for authors to write kids and books that when it's good. So I really liked the daughters in this, his daughters, and she was like kind of like his nanny, but she also worked at Coverley Farms, but she would help him out and like kind of be his secondary nanny because his wife kind of just bounced and like left the kids with him and is not helpful, to kind of says she's going to come visit and then doesn't show up. So it's really heartbreaking for these kids. So he has actually been noticing her a lot lately. For like the last year, he's been kind of fantasizing about her, but feeling horrible about it because she like helps with his kids and, you know, it's his like boss's daughter. So, but she's actually 27. So there's like a 10-year age gap, but it doesn't really feel like that much of an age gap to me because a lot of the time Franny was more mature than Mac with the way he handled like their secret relationship because they eventually do kind of kiss and have this chemistry, but he would keep like kissing her, like then they finally hook up and then he would be like, we can never do that again, and like push her away, but then want it again. And I hate that back and forth with men like in books. It drives me nuts. So that was kind of annoying me because I'm like, if you're gonna say we shouldn't do this again, then stick to it and be a man. Like don't fall victim to it and don't push her away when you didn't really need to. Like honestly, like the fallout of people finding out about them really isn't anything. So it was kind of more of Mac's hangups than like the reality of the situation. But I did really like his daughters. I liked Franny. She was a really strong character and she starts to speak up for herself and kind of try to find her own passion, which she was an amazing cook and she wanted to open up her own little bakery kind of thing. So it was a good little journey and I'm definitely interested in continuing, but it didn't blow me away or anything. So I did give this 4 stars and 3 chilies. The spice was on point. It was hot. Okay, so next I read To Hate Adam Connor by Elle Maise. I read the I don't remember the first one, something Jason Thorne, How to Love Jason Thorne, or I don't remember. Sorry, I didn't really love it. But this is on Audible Plus, and I thought I would give the second book a try. And this is another celebrity kind of romance. between Lucy and then obviously Adam Connor. Adam Connor is a single dad. He's a huge celebrity, kind of been working in the industry since he was like, I think a teen or a kid. So he definitely has his own hangups with, you know, growing up in that industry. Him and his like ex are kind of have this weird dynamic relationship, and I don't know, there's just a lot going on with that, where she was still part of the kid's life but wasn't really that protective as a mom, and he was having issues. But what happens in this is Lucy is best friends with the heroine from the first one, and Jason Thorne actually lives next to Adam Connor, and they were kind of like her and the heroine from the first book were like kind of spying on Adam and his like he's a single dad, him and his son out by the pool and stuff, and they were kind of spying on him. And then a separate time, Lucy was watching him, and the son went out by the pool by himself and got into the pool, so she like climbed over and saved him. But Adam Connor thought she was basically like a stalker and had her arrested. So then from that point on, she hates Adam Connor. And I don't know, you guys, I don't know if this author's for me or it's just this series, but it was so over the top. And again, it's when I don't like a heroine, the book fails for me. I liked Lucy in the first one, and she drove me freaking nuts in this book. She starts off the book saying she believes in love and oh, love, but then I'm cursed. My family's cursed. We can't be in love. Even though she was just in love with her ex that cheated on her. And it makes no sense. She's so back and forth, like, figure it out what you are. Anyways, and then she like constantly hates Adam Connor, even though he's a fucking catch. And she's like, no, I hate you, even though she wants him. And that was my problem, was she was totally sexualizing him. Totally, like, the amount of time she talked about the size of his junk and this guy's junk and this guy's size. It was so disgusting how, like, I'm sorry, but we wouldn't like a guy talking about a woman like that. It's not okay for a woman to, that's all I heard the whole book. I listened to this on audiobook and I was irritated throughout most of the book. She was just brutal. And then her whole constant standing on like, I hate you. Oh, I don't like you. Like, I'm just like, shut the F up. So it didn't really work for me. And I ended up giving this one 3 stars and then 3 chilies. I just didn't like the heroine. Okay, so then I finally finished the off-campus series, which was one of my goals this year. So yay, I did it. I finally did it after how many years putting it off. But I read The Legacy by Elle Kennedy. And this is kind of like a collection of, I guess, epilogues or whatever on each of the couples. I thought it would be like extended epilogues, like taking a look into their life like years down the road and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of was, but it was mostly like a drama-filled or thing with issues or seeing the couples in turmoil kind of thing. And I didn't really like that. So I have an overall rating for the book, but then I have ratings for each of like the little novellas on each couple. So the first one we have is The Pact, and that is between Logan and Grace. And this one I actually really enjoyed. Logan and Grace are one of my favorite couples. I love The Mistake. And I thought this was really cute. They kind of are missing each other, you know, with hockey, he's constantly on the road and she feels kind of disconnected. They're not in a bad place in their relationship, but there is that disconnection and missing each other. So, you know, he's told, I think Garrett tells him to kind of go on an adventure. You need to go out and do things together, not just sit at home, you know, whatever. So he ends up getting like a place, I think it was in Connecticut, I can't remember, but it was like a bed and breakfast kind of thing, and they're on their way. Unfortunately, a huge snowstorm happens. They can barely see where they're going. They kind of skid and like lose control and kind of go down an embankment. So now their car is stuck in the snow and they can't get out. They try calling for a tow truck, but it's going to be like hours till they can get to them because, of course, it's on like New Year's. And so they just are kind of stuck in this car, which I always love that, like the snowed in or stuck in a car thing. I love it. So they end up just having a great time together. Obviously, got to keep warm. And then they finally get to the bed and breakfast, and they kind of just decide, let's elope, because the guy there was actually able to marry them. But it just ended there, so I was kind of like bummed because I wanted like to see them get married. But so I gave that one 4 stars. The next one was The Proposal for Dean and Elle. And Dean is like my favorite. I love Dean so much. I loved the score. It blew me away. I actually cried in that book, which was surprising. But like this one, I didn't totally love because obviously it's about him proposing to Elle, but she doesn't want to get married, and she's made that clear to him. But then she still wants to be with him forever, but she just doesn't want to get married right now because it has to be an exact plan of like, get married, then we have kids, then it's like, it doesn't have to be this linear thing. And he doesn't even say we have to get married right now, but he wants to be engaged and take the next step in their commitment. So then there's this big fight. And I don't know, I didn't really like that. Like, I just wanted to see a sweet proposal and have her and Dean be together. Like, I love Dean. So that one kind of irritated me. I did give it 4 stars because I just love Dean. I love him so much. Okay. Then we have The Honeymoon, and this is between Tucker and Sabrina. And honestly, I hated that book the most out of this group. This is out of the series. Their book, I didn't like Sabrina. And again, if I don't like a heroine, the book doesn't work for me. She drove me nuts in that book. So I knew this one wasn't going to be my favorite. They end up finally going on a honeymoon where they're not taking their kids, so it's just going to be them. Of course, Sabrina's the uptight mom that can't let her control go. And their honeymoon is a disaster. One bad thing happens after another. But they do end up meeting like another couple there, and it's going to help out with their jobs, their next step in their life kind of thing. I was just bored. I was kind of over it, and I just wanted to get to the next epilogue. So I gave this one 2 stars because honestly, I just don't like Sabrina. So then the last one was The Legacy, and this was between Garrett and Hannah, and I was very frustrated by this one because I love Garrett and Hannah. The Deal is one of my favorite books. It's like a diehard for me for, fake dating. My first hockey romance I read, I just love it. And I love Garrett and Hannah. They've been this solid couple throughout the whole series. But yet in this, Hannah finds out she's pregnant and hides it from him. Makes every excuse not to tell him that she's pregnant. She just is really pissing me off. And like they had 0 communication. The couple that had it together, the whole series, like couldn't have open communication and work through this. Then when the way she tells him was fucked up. The way he reacted was fucked up, and I didn't want that for Garrett and Hannah, so I was pretty frustrated with that one. So I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. So all around, I basically kind of gave this, since it was 2 4s and a couple 2s, I gave this a 3 star, and I think it was like 2 chilies because the spice wasn't that much in this. So I was kind of disappointed. I honestly didn't think we needed this because we left them in their books in a good place, and this kind of just, I don't know, it was kind of frustrating. So, oh well. Okay, so the next one I read was Shards of Frost by Suzanne Wright, and this is the final book in the Mercury pack, and I don't know why it took me forever to read this. Or I didn't continue because I was reading them pretty quickly, the Phoenix pack and the Mercury pack. But this last one I never read. So it's been a while since I read the previous book in the series. So I kind of didn't know how I was going to do with all the couples. But honestly, I remembered everything once they throw you back into Suzanne Wright's paranormal shifter world. I remembered. So I really enjoyed this one. I did listen to this on Audible. It's available on Audible Plus. I'm not sure if the whole series. I remember I listened to it back before I had an Audible subscription. And it was like the read and listen for free if you have Kindle Unlimited. So that's why I listened to all those. And I think this final book wasn't the read and listen for free, but it is on Audible Plus. Anyway, side note. So this is her Shifter series. And in this one, it was really interesting because we finally get Eli's book. Eli is Nick Axton's brother, and he's like the alpha of the Mercury pack. And so I was excited to finally get his romance. This is his romance with Casey. And what was really cool was Casey is like a really badass heroine. She is a mink and they are lethal and deadly. And like they kind of have these huge packs and everything. And it opens up with her kind of being in a fighting ring. There's like shifter fighting and stuff. And she's fighting to kind of pay back her brother's loan. He kind of got into it with a really shady alpha who was like dealing drugs to him and he owes him money. And so her brother's kind of missing right now. So this guy's going to her to like pay off his debt. And so she's fighting and she's supposed to throw the fight, but she decides, ain't gonna do that. I'm not gonna throw a fight. And so she kind of gets into it afterwards with that alpha of that pack. And then Eli shows up to kind of try and help, although she doesn't really need much help. She's pretty ruthless and a badass. But once he sees her, once they like connect eyes, it's like instant, the mating connection. They are true mates and the bond like is really clicking into place. Obviously it doesn't fully click because there's a lot of things that come into play. Of you needing to totally trust the person or little hangups that you'll see throughout the series that might stop them from fully having the mating bond fall into place. But they instantly realize we're mates and they go for it. Like, so there's really no angst around the relationship in this. They're together right from the go and they have an amazing connection. It's spicy as hell. So I loved that. He was very possessive, but also she's a strong woman. So she's kind of an alpha type of person too. So I loved their, like, just the way they compromise and work together. And so, there is some danger stuff that's going on. It could be tied to that other alpha that she owed money to for her brother and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good conclusion to the Mercury pack, and I need to look into Susan Wright and see if she has any other shifter series. Because I really enjoyed them. Obviously, reading them back to back, they can seem kind of like repetitive. So I do think it's good to give yourself a little bit of a break in between these ones. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 4 chilies because it is spicy and I love shifter sex. So it was a good time. Okay, so then I am trying to do one of my other goals this year to finally read the Anna Huang, I believe it's Kings of Sin series. And I read King of Wrath way back and I just stopped, which I usually do with series. I do this to myself and then I never finish things. So I want to finish this series this year. So I finally read King of Pride by Anna Huang. And I really enjoyed King of Wrath. I think I gave it like 4 stars. But I loved King of Pride. I think this is such a phenomenal romance. And it's very low angst, but sweet billionaire romance that I just loved. So this is between Kai and Isabella. And Kai is this very smart, he wears glasses. He's, very severe, but like is strict with himself. He is I don't know. He's just amazing. He is up to be the CEO for his family company, but he doesn't just get it. He has to go through a vote with the board and all of that kind of stuff. So he is actually needs to kind of project the perfect image and be clean for these next 4 months where he's before the vote. But unfortunately, Isabella walks into his life. He's been kind of trying to stay away from her for a year. She is a bartender at this club that they go to, Valhalla. He's like, I think one of the founding people or part of that group. And he is just really into her, but like stays away from her. This is the opposites attract. She is, a dirty mouth, fun. She's got like purple highlight kind of hair. She's spontaneous, and he's very regimented. So it's opposites attract. She is actually trying to be an author. She's been trying to write a book for a couple years, but she just really hasn't pushed herself to work on it steadily. And her family is kind of over it. And they kind of give her a deadline, like you need to finish it by our mom's birthday when you come home, or you're going to need to come back home and work in our business because she can't like get her like inheritance or whatever until she does that. So she's kind of trying to push herself to finish this book. And her and Kai eventually start to go after what they want with each other. They start to secretly date and see each other, which can be kind of not good for his CEO. Lots of things are going on with that vote that seem kind of shady. It was great seeing Dante in this again from King of Wrath. And then we also see Christian Harper from Twisted Lies, who is like one of my favorites. So it's great seeing them again. But I really loved this. Kai was so supportive. And he was just trying to help support her in her troubles or writing blocks. She's has a lot of doubt in herself and no self-confidence. So he's really tries to build her self-confidence. And they just had such a sweet relationship. Isabella, the conflict kind of comes around with her no self-confidence and not feeling like she kind of feels like the loser of her family. And is she good enough to be in Kai's life and all of that? So I didn't think the conflict was stupid or dumb third act. So I did appreciate it. And I just love them. And Kai has a dirty mouth too and some good sexy times in here. I just loved it. It was nice to read like a low angst, sweet billionaire romance. And I cannot wait to get to the next one, which is going to be like a marriage in trouble. So I gave this 5 stars and 3.5 chilies, and I would highly recommend it. Okay, so the last book that I read was The Things We Leave Unfinished by Rebecca Yarros. So this is one of my 12 recs from 12 friends that I put up on my Instagram. And I was nervous to read this one because I've only read Rebecca Yarros once, and that was The Fourth Wing. And I did not really like The Fourth Wing. I felt like it was very immature and like a young voices. It felt more YA, trying to be new adult. And it was just like, it didn't work for me. I have a video on it. I'll link it down below if I remember on my Fourth Wing review. So I was worried going into this because I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this. Like, I don't think I'm going to like this author. But I actually was proved wrong on this. I really enjoyed this. So this I actually listened to on audiobook. It is available on Audible Plus. And it was a really good audiobook. I think the narrators did such a good job that like brought out my emotions. Like you could feel the emotional times because this is an emotional book. This book is told in 2 timelines, which was another thing I was worried about because that doesn't always work for me. But I think the different timelines were like transitioned perfectly. In our current timeline, we have Georgia, and she is just went through a public divorce. Her husband was like this director, I believe, in Hollywood and stuff. And she has moved back to her hometown because her grandmother has died and left everything pretty much to her. And so she's back there, and she kind of finds out her mother made a deal in her name because she has all the rights to have her great-grandmother's unfinished book like finished by another author. So her great-grandmother was a famous romance author. She's a very beloved author, and she has this one book that's unfinished, and it's about her actual romance. And that's what leads us back to the time in the past, which is going to be her romance. So the great-grandmother's name was Scarlett, and her romance it's set in World War II. She was British, and she falls in love with this American pilot named Jameson, and it's their romance. And I can just tell you that like their romance hit me so hard. So Georgia in the current timeline is annoyed because she has to kind of work with Noah, who's this big author. And he is a huge fan of Scarlett's, and he's going to finish her book. But he wants to write a HEA ending, this happily ever after, that didn't really get to happen for reasons for her great-grandmother and Jameson. And so she's annoyed because she wants the real story with like more of her biography kind of thing. So they kind of fight back and forth on this. He's going to write 2 different types of endings and see which is better. He's hoping she will realize his ending is better. And so we constantly are seeing them in the current timeline going through this, kind of butting heads over the ending. And then we kind of go back and we see the romance between Scarlett and Jameson. So the first half of this book was really slow to me. I was kind of thinking it was a solid 4-star, but the last half really amped it up and it blew me away. There was a big plot twist that I had not seen coming, which never happens for me. So I was really impressed with that. And like Jameson and Scarlett were just so beautiful together. You see their love, and falling in love and trying to survive during World War II is just, it's a crazy kind of thing to even think about. How like he was a pilot and he was putting his life in danger every day. I mean, she also worked for like the British and like military and stuff. So, but then when she has a baby, you know, they get married, she has a baby and all this stuff. It's like also a dangerous place for her just to be because of bombings and things going on. So you could just see how intense it was and how much they loved each other, and they would have to spend times apart. And there were just these like letters that would transition between the past and now. And it was just a good transition to see these letters that they wrote to each other. And I can just tell you that like when the emotional stuff start to hit in like the last 30% of this book, I was crying multiple times. And so I was shocked. This felt like a completely different author than The Fourth Wing. And I think it is just like, maybe that was her first foray into fantasy. And I don't know, this book was so much better and heartfelt and heartbreaking and beautiful. And even though it's a heartbreaking, sad kind of thing with that past relationship, I felt like it was a perfect ending and it was beautiful and I loved it. So I wasn't as invested in Georgia and Noah's romance in the current timeline. I was fully invested in, I'm sorry, I just lost her name, Scarlett and Jameson's romance. And I just was really impressed with this. So I'm definitely thinking about giving Rebecca Yarros another chance and maybe reading more of her contemporaries or these kinds of things instead of her fantasy. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I mean, if you make me cry, I mean, that's a 5-star for me. So I gave this 5 stars. It was 2 chilies. It didn't really have a lot of spice in it. It didn't need it. I think it was more of an emotional, heartbreaking, beautiful look at love in time of war and all of that. So I had a great time with that. So thank you to Pardon This Book Addict for recommending that to me. Loved it. Okay, so those are all the books that I read this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you made it to the end. If you can, please subscribe to my channel, comment, like the video, and I will see you on the next one.